Well, good evening. It is me, Keys, the K and Back Talk Bros, and we're gonna have a show for you guys tonight. Um, I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna talk about review for the Chiefs and Patriots, and we're gonna preview the Chiefs and the Raiders coming up. We're gonna hit the chat Q&A. At some point, Gooch will be with us here. Aaron may or may not. He's catching up on sleep, guys. He works nights, works hard, as does Gooch. And so he might drop in, he might not make it. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So now I'm going to hit that intro.
Y'all ready for them Chiefs? Y'all ready for them Chiefs? Let's
All right. So while we wait for Gooch, we are going to do something that we do a lot of the times here while it's just me. And we're going to look at the by the numbers. Tonight, we got some interesting by the numbers for everybody. Let me pull up our first ones here. The first thing that we're going to look at is the scenarios for the Chiefs to clinch the AFC West, a playoff spot, a playoff berth, and the AFC West. So we're going to look at those two things here. The Chiefs play the Raiders at noon on Sunday. Kansas City clinches a playoff berth and the AFC West title with a Kansas City win, simple enough, or a Kansas City tie and a Denver loss. That's it. Guys, I've seen some of these. I think it's Cleveland's. It's like 15 or 20 scenarios long on here. Kansas City just has to win against the Raiders, or they can tie and Denver loses, and they have clinched not only a playoff berth, but the AFC West division title. Simple as that. This one's a really quick one. Not much else to say here about that one. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next one here, and we're gonna have a little love for Rashee Rice for the next couple ones we got here. This is courtesy of K Adams, Up and Adam, on, as Gooch would say, the Twitter. Trying to size this, make it easier to see, hopefully. Don't think I can do much more to help out here. And it is simply Rashee Rice's rankings, receiver rankings over the last 4 weeks. Last 4 weeks, and I believe number one overall is Jamar Chase over the last 4 weeks. But as you see here in receptions, number two is Rashee Rice with 32 receiving yards per game. Fourth overall in the NFL with 83 and a half. Receiving touchdowns, he's tied for fourth with 3 over the last 4 weeks. And reception percentage of 84.2% makes him number 2 overall as well. As I said, we're going to have a couple things here for Rashee Rice, so bear with me. We're going to show him a little love as he deserves. This next one is a tweet by Matt Derrick talking about Rashee Rice's 81% catch rate. That's the highest for a rookie receiver with at least 70 targets. That data goes back to 1992. So we're talking, what, 31 years, I believe, if my math off the top of my head is correct. Next on the list is Michael Thomas, Jamison Crowder, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Some people might want to nitpick that and say that, perhaps Rashee Rice gets quite a few wide receiver screens, a lot more passes towards the line of scrimmage that really helps with that catch rate. But either way, Chiefs are opening things up for him the last few weeks or so. And I think it's really hard to try to just say that that's the only thing at this point that is helping his numbers. Now that we've talked about Rashee Rice, however, we're going to get just a tad bit on the more, I don't want to say negative side, but we're definitely going to hit the not fun stuff here. Have another tweet for everyone. I forget who shared this one, but the information of the tweet that they got it from came from Benjamin Solik. Kadarius Toney is now the 9th worst in the league among receivers in EPA, that's expected points added per target, which crazily enough is not even the worst Chiefs receiver in EPA per target. That's Sky Moore, who is 6th worst in the league. So Sky Moore is now on injured reserve. He will not play the rest of the season. Until that point, the Chiefs had the 6th worst and the 9th worst in the entirety of the NFL in receivers at EPA per target. Not good at all. If you want to do some quick math here, if you say that each team has 5 receivers, the Chiefs were rolling out 7, but if you want to say 5, even if you want to be super, super, super conservative and say 4 wide receivers per 32 NFL teams, that's still like 128 wide receivers. Very conservatively speaking. And the Chiefs have the 6th worst and the 9th worst, which would mean that we're talking about more than 120 wide receivers in the entire NFL who have better EPAs per target than Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. It's kind of a good thing right now that we are seeing a positive emergence from Rashee Rice. The Chiefs also announced, or it's been announced someplace, that the Chiefs signed Isaiah Gathings, I believe, who was with the team in OTAs and some preseason games. He didn't make the 53. He didn't make it back to the Chiefs 50 or the Chiefs practice squad for whatever reasons, but they signed him to the practice squad when we had a different tight end, Garrick Prince or something, get injured. So he's replacing him, taking his spot. And then they signed wide receiver Andre Miller, who was drafted by the Bears, I believe, when Matt Nagy was there. I'm not going to talk about that very much. Just going to throw this up here really quick. It's a Sky Moore versus Anthony Miller relative athletic score. Obviously when it came to the 40 and the 20 split, Sky Moore has more to offer. But as you get to, and even on the 10 split, but as you look at the whole, the encompassing of their athletic scores, including size, Anthony Miller did have a bit up on Sky here, but Miller was drafted 4 years before Sky Moore. So this could it could be a lot closer to a kind of an older Justin Watson type without the ability that Justin Watson does bring for those who actually don't hate Justin Watson. Going to kind of get more into talk about the offense. in a different direction now, and we're going to look at over the cap on this chart here, over the cap's valuation versus expected points per play added for the offense. So on the bottom here, you can see the offensive EPA per play. This is offense. 0 is right where my cursor is, if you can see it. 0 expected points added right there. And then as we go vertically up here, we have the valuation of money. At the top is 170 million. This bottom here is 80 million. The Kansas City Chiefs are right below 140 million. And as far as EPA per play, they're kind of right here in the 0.05. And so about 140 million and 0.05, which isn't too terrible among our line here. You can see Dallas, Philly, Buffalo, and Detroit here as well. You can see their EPA. You can see the 49ers, the Dolphins. You can see the Ravens, Kansas City. Nothing too big here to talk about, just to show it. We'll later show the defensive one as well. This one could be a talking point for later in the game, or later in the stream, rather. Chiefs EPA per play splits. So this is looking at their expected points added per play, but it's breaking it down into two different chunks. The first 3 quarters of a game and the fourth quarter specifically. Okay. And in this case, it's broken down this way to show that at for whatever reason, the fourth quarter, our expected points added per play is 27th in the NFL. 27th in the NFL. The first 3 quarters, it's 5th overall. So something is happening there, whether it's defense is making adjustments, the Chiefs offense, Andy Reid, Matt Nagy not making adjustments, players fatigued and not concentrating, whatever the case is, for whatever reason, in the fourth quarter, I mean, part of it could be explained by the Chiefs. If they have a lead, they're running the ball more, and they don't generally. And it's true for basically the whole NFL. You get more expected points added by passing the ball than running the ball typically. So it could make some sense that in the fourth quarter, if you have a lead and you're running the ball, that your expected points added per play will be lower. But we still have the ranking here, and it's 27th overall in the NFL. We have one of the best interior offensive lines in the NFL. We have a great running back in Isaiah Pacheco, a great number 2 running back in Jerick McKinnon. We've even seen some flashes from CEH the last couple of games with Pacheco out. You still have Travis Kelce. You have the MERS. You have Rashee Rice showing up on the field more and more every single week. His snap percentage is constantly going up. It's really hard to make this make sense that you can have 0.1 expected points added per play, But in the fourth quarter, you have negative 1.4, almost negative 1.5 expected points added per play. It is crazy. Hopefully, the Chiefs coaching staff gets this figured out. What is the root cause for this one? Next couple ones here, we're going to be looking at Patrick Mahomes / NFL quarterbacks, but for our purposes, is going to be Patrick Mahomes here. EPA per play on inside throws versus outside throws. So it's really EPA per play on throws over the middle or outside throws, right? Is what it says here. So as we go across horizontally, as we go through that axis here from left to right, we're looking at expected points added per play on throws over the middle. As we go vertical here from bottom to top, we're looking at expected points added per play on outside throws. In atypical Patrick Mahomes graph fashion here, he's all the way over on the left, right towards the center. For whatever reason, he's sitting at a little over 0.2 expected points added on outside throws. You could say 0.25. And he's basically right at 0.2 on throws over the middle. I think that there was a graph somewhere else that showed his other seasons, for comparison. But this is very atypical of Patrick Mahomes here. We're going to look at one more Mahomes one. And this is one that I showed on the Dan show last night. It is Patrick Mahomes' EPA per play per season. I don't think I've shown this one on here before, but this one itself is very interesting in that we have a lot of arguments about what is wrong with the offense right now. And a very popular one is you don't have Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator anymore. You have Matt Nagy on here. And, the interesting thing about this one is if you look at the 2021 expected points per play or added per play in that season, 2023 is not much different at all. Now, in 2021, the Kansas City Chiefs had Tyreek Hill in his last year as a Kansas City Chief. And he had to that point, he had his career high in targets. The Chiefs had Tyreek Hill getting his career high in targets before he left to Miami via trade in the 2022 offseason. They also had Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. And yet, with both of them, in 2023, without either of them, the expected points added per play for Patrick Mahomes is basically the same. Now, one similarity that someone could point out here is that in 2021, I believe, is our first season that we had Orlando Brown Jr. as the left tackle. I believe that's correct. Someone wants to look that up and correct me, but I'm pretty sure that was the first season we had Orlando Brown Jr. in Kansas City, among other offensive line moves. But regardless, we had Tyreek Hill and we had Eric Bieniemy in 2021. Just throwing that one out there. for whatever context you want to look at it with. That's just the way things were. So, as we continue to go through here, we're going to look at the defense very briefly with that similar chart than the one we saw with the offense. This is the over the cap valuation for the defense. Over the cap valuation versus the expected points added per play for the defense. Okay. Now, remember when it comes for expected points added per play for the defense, right? When it comes to that, you want a negative. You do not want a positive. On offense, you want a positive. Okay. On defense, you want a negative expected points added. That means you're preventing points on a play. We see Kansas City here, expected points added on the horizontal axis here from left to right. Kansas City is about between 0.06 and 0.08. If you want to call it 0.07, that works. Right here, before Atlanta, after Minnesota, looks like there is 4, 6, 8 teams ahead of Kansas City as far as EPA per play. And as you look at the money, again, we go from 80 million at the bottom to 180 million up here at 180 million. The San Francisco 49ers. Kansas City is right here around, say, 110 million. So, in this case, you can see the difference between what the defense is and what the offense was. Now, as we move forward here, just going to throw up a couple things here really quickly. This is from May of this season, or from this year, May. So this was before the season began. Warren Sharp would highly recommend getting Warren Sharp's every year he comes out with like a NFL preview. I would highly recommend it. Always has great information about the league in general, league trends on offense and defense, a lot of great numbers, and he spends nearly a dozen pages, 8, 10, 12 pages per team, breaking down their previous season and previewing the new season before it begins. And this is from part of his breakdown before the season began. Like I said, this was from May of 2023. And it says, which NFL team was hurt the most by the 2023 schedule? He very clearly, or the author for them of this piece wrote, the Chiefs were the most, or were hurt most by the 2023 NFL schedule when considering every rest and prep variable. The 49ers, Eagles, Vikings, and Giants round out the top 5 teams hurt the most by the 2023 schedule. Well, we're going to break that down even farther because they do, and I'm going to put that up here next. They don't just make that claim. They go on to completely break down Kansas City's schedule notes. What we're going to look at next here. Kansas City Chiefs schedule notes. The Super Bowl champion Chiefs have a net rest edge of -13, third worst in the NFL this year. But for the Chiefs, it's not just that they have less rest in general. They have less rest than their opponent for 6 straight weeks. Weeks 12 through week 17. Week 12, they're off a Monday night game when they play the Raiders. So 1 day less rest. Week 13, they play the Packers, who played on Thanksgiving the week prior. So they had 3 days less rest than the Packers. Week 14, they played the Bills, who came off of a bye. So they had 7 days less rest than the Bills when they played them a couple weeks ago. Week 15, they played the Patriots, who were off of a Thursday night game. So the Patriots had 3 days more rest than the Chiefs coming into Sunday's contest. This Sunday, week 16, they play the Raiders, who are off a Thursday night game. But because Kansas City is off a Monday night game, it is 4 days less rest for the Chiefs. Okay, so when we come into Sunday's game here, very pivotal game, week 16 here. Okay, 3 games left in the NFL season. The Raiders last played on Thursday night. Of course, we do have a correction here because the Chiefs were scheduled to play Monday night, but they got flexed because of the Patriots having the second worst schedule in the NFL. Again, this was written in May. This game was flexed just a couple weeks ago. So the Raiders played Thursday night. The Chiefs played Sunday afternoon, not Monday night. So it's not 4 days less rest, it's 3 days less rest. But nonetheless, it is still 3 days less. And then the following week, when they play the Bengals, week 17, the Bengals are off a Saturday game. So the Bengals this weekend, according to these notes, are playing a Saturday game, and Kansas City is playing a Monday night game. It's 2 days less rest for the Chiefs. Now, 6 weeks, and we still have 2 of these games left. So the last 4 games have all been with a negative rest advantage. 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 3 days. When we play the Raiders, it'll be 3 days. And according to this, when we play the Bengals, it'll be 2 days. So 6 straight weeks where we will have had less rest than our opponents. So take that with what you will. As they go on to say, it would be one thing to have the third worst net rest edge in the NFL, but for there to be 6 games in a row where they are dealing with, most often, multiple days rest disadvantage, and for them to come late in the season as they do, will be extremely challenging on the Chiefs. And then they go on to say, for the record, in 2021, they had +9 in net rest edge, which was 5th best. And in 2022, they were +7 in net rest edge, which was 6th best. So it's been a long time coming for them to be on the opposite end of the spectrum, but that will certainly be the case in 2023. +9 +7 is +16. Over 2 seasons, +16. This season, they're -13. So have they really deserved to go from a total over 2 years of being +16 to all in one season being -13? Like, I could get our argument if we were, if we were -8 this year and next year. As it says here, the Chiefs will be -20 in net rest from week 12. That's the first time they played the Raiders through the end of the season. As a Chiefs fan, this should be frustrating to us. As a Chiefs player, like if this was me, this would be something I would be I would be complaining with the NFLPA about. And maybe it's no surprise we're seeing as many injuries on this team the last few weeks as we have. But now we're going to finish out here and we're going to look at AFC playoff picture as it stands right now. If the playoffs ended today, this is what the playoff picture would look like in the AFC from NFL.com here. The Ravens would receive a bye. The Colts would be the 2 seed, and the Dolphins would be the 2 seed, and they would play the Colts. The Chiefs would be the 3 seed, and they would play the Bengals. And the Jags would be the 4th seed, and they would play the Browns. Now, this is not how I have the rest of this season going. What I have, and I'll throw up my end of the year projections. This is how I have the last 3 games of the season going. Okay. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but the green is that team winning. The red is that team losing. So when we look at the AFC teams here, the Ravens receiving a bye. I have the Ravens going 2-1, finishing 13-4 as the number 1 seed in the AFC. That doesn't mean it's going to happen like that. There's still a path for the Chiefs or Dolphins to be the number 1 seed. It's possible. I don't think it's realistic to expect the Ravens to lose all 3 games, especially when the third game is the Steelers without Kenny Pickett and some version of Mason Rudolph or Mitch Trubisky playing in this game. It's hard for me to see the Ravens losing that game. I see them losing against the 49ers. I don't have them losing against the Dolphins, but it very well could happen. Not trying to disrespect the Dolphins here. It could certainly happen. And if it happened, then the Ravens would be 12-5. And as we see here, if that happened, they would be tied with the Chiefs, who I believe would have the tiebreaker over the Ravens, giving them the number 1 seed. So it's certainly conceivable Kansas City could have the number 1 seed, but I think it's more probable that the Ravens keep the number 1 seed and that the Chiefs end up the number 2 seed. I think it's way more probable that the Dolphins lose the number 2 seed than that the Ravens lose the number 1 seed. Like, it's just way too difficult, in my opinion, for the Dolphins to hold on to this number 2 seed. You can see them here on the ranking. The rankings are based off of the projected record. So how they'll finish out of the whole NFL. The Dolphins I have projected as finishing 9th, losing all 3 of their last games. They play the Cowboys, they play the Ravens in Baltimore, and then they play the Bills in Miami. The Bills already beat them once. Yes, they don't have Matt Milano this time, but their offense looks sufficiently better than it did even when they had the first matchup. I think the Bills understand what to do and how to stop Miami's offense, and I don't think Miami's defense is near talented enough from what I've seen this season to stop the Bills. I see 3 losses. Listen, the Dolphins could surprise me and win 1 or 2 of them. I don't see them winning all 3 of those games. So I think it is highly probable, because if we look, Kansas City is finishing at 12-5. If I'm correct on them winning out. The Dolphins are finishing at 10-7. Even if Miami were to win 2 out of those 3 games, both teams are finishing at 12-5 here. In my opinion, Miami is losing the 2 seed. The 2 seed will be the Chiefs. The 3 seed will be Miami. Maybe. From what I have here, the Bills will be your AFC East champion. So your seeding would look more like the Ravens getting a bye as the 1 seed, the Chiefs being the 2 seed, the Bills being the 3 seed, the Jags being the 4th seed, the Dolphins being the 5th seed. So you would have the Dolphins at the Jaguars as your 5th seed. Did I get that right? No, I did not. Sorry. I am way off. It would still be Jaguars and Browns under this scenario. It would still be Jaguars and Browns, 4th versus 5th. And then we would have, for the 3rd time this season, we would have the Dolphins at the Bills, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. The Dolphins would be the 6th seed, and they would be playing the Bills for the 3rd time this season, this time in wintry Buffalo weather. And that would leave us with same thing as show. Well, no, it wouldn't be the same thing they show on here. Instead of the Colts as the 7th seed, then it would be the Bengals as the 7th seed traveling to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, the number 2 seed. It would be a fun and interesting exercise. The likely outcome would probably be then the Ravens playing the Jags at home and the Chiefs hosting the Bills again at home. So, yeah, that would be the way that I have it, based off of my projections for the rest of the season, which are not. I'm not saying that it's going to be the way it is. It's just the way that I see it. As far as the NFC, the current playoff matchups for the NFC go, if the playoffs were to start right now, 49ers are the 1 seed and receive the bye. Cowboys are the 2 seed and they host the 7 seed Rams. The Lions are the 3 seed and they host the 6 seed Vikings. The Bucks are the 4th seed, very, very sadly, hosting the number 5 Eagles. Now, again, from my projections, I do have the 49ers, as the 1 seed receiving the bye. I do have the Cowboys as the 2 seed. And I do have the Eagles then as the 5 seed. I have the Lions as the 3 seed as well. And obviously then I have the Buccaneers as the 4th seed. Then after that, I have the Rams as the 6th seed, not the 7th seed, and the Packers as the 7th seed. So I do not have the Vikings making the playoffs. I have the Rams taking the 6th seed instead of the Vikings, who are missing the playoffs. And the AFC North instead will have the Packers as the 7th seed. And in a moment, I'll show you my reasoning for this. You guys do not think that I'm absolutely crazy. And so in this scenario, we would have the Cowboys at home hosting the Packers as the 7th seed. we would have the Lions at home as the 3 seed hosting the 6 seed Rams, and the 4 seed Bucks hosting the 5 seed Eagles. Theoretically, then we would see the Cowboys winning, the Lions winning, the Cowboys beating the Packers, the Lions beating the Rams, the Eagles beating the Buccaneers, and all of a sudden in the divisional round, as the highest seed remaining, we would see the 49ers host the Eagles. Maybe the game that should be the NFC Championship. Like, that's the caliber of the game. But in this case, the way I have it, the way it would work out, in my opinion, but any given Sunday, is that you're getting in the divisional championship, in the divisional game, you're getting 49ers hosting the Eagles, which is kind of the same way they have it too. You know, if you expect the Rams and the Vikings to lose to the Cowboys and Lions, prospectively or respectively. So you would have 49ers and Eagles, and you would have the Cowboys hosting the Lions, just as we've seen so many Thanksgiving days. Two really, really, really good football games. Maybe at the end of the day, you would have then the 49ers hosting the Cowboys, and we would have some retro 1990s football. I don't know. I'm gonna put this schedule or my projections up again really quickly, just so you can see I'm not crazy when I am talking about why I believe the Vikings are going to miss the playoffs entirely when they're currently situated in there all nice and cozy as the 6th seed. We see the Vikings down here with my projected record as the 21st best team. They're 7-7 now. I have them finishing at 7-10. Now, the Lions have had their issues the last few weeks. I'm still a big believer in the Lions, but again, anything can happen. The Lions could lose one or both of these games. I don't think they're going to. And to be honest, what we've seen from the Packers after beating both the Lions and Chiefs in 2 impressive wins, maybe it's not even fair to say the Packers are going to win all 3 of theirs and the Vikings are going to lose all 3 of theirs. But I have the Vikings play the Lions, then the Packers, and then they play the Lions again at Detroit. For me, on paper, especially with whoever the hell they're going to throw out at quarterback on any given week for the Vikings, they're losing all 3 of those games and going 0-3, which would put them at 7-10. If you want to argue, I would think that most people would agree with at least most of that, right? They're probably not going 9-8. Maybe 8-9. Maybe they don't go 7-10. Maybe they go 8-9. But I think 9-8 is stretching it a little bit. And I'm a huge fan of Brian Flores and what he's brought to that defense, but still. But if you want to drop the Packers out of it and you want to put the Seahawks in there as the 7th seed, I don't know that it really matters, to be honest. I don't think that the Seahawks or the Saints or Vikings, I don't think they're winning a road playoff game. So I don't know that it's going to change much. But so that's, for me, those 3 games I have as losses for the Vikings. Let me get my desktop cleaned out here. All right. Hopefully, Gooch can get in here really quick. He's dealing with some issues at work. So that is what it is. We're going to go ahead and get into the Chiefs and the Patriots. game here. Pretty impressive game for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, filling in for Isaiah Pacheco, who had surgery on his shoulder to clean up some stuff floating around in there from previous surgery he had in the offseason. Chiefs score 27 points in this game. Coming into this game, we knew that we needed to see more from the wide receiver room. Rashee Rice had something like, I want to say 85% of the snaps, which is a very strong positive. There were still moments in this game. Well, we're talking about the positive here. We were able to score points. You know, Bill Belichick is still a smart, great defensive head coach. The Patriots still have a pretty good defense. So the ability to go down the field, cut down on penalties, still put up points, was a big win, in my opinion. What didn't go well, or what stood out for the wrong reasons? Well, obviously, the two interceptions that I can't even say Patrick Mahomes threw. The two interceptions both looked like the wide receiver caught the ball and then turned into a quarterback handing the ball off to a running back, except for they were handing it off to the defense. Two interceptions go down in Patrick Mahomes' stat line to give the haters and naysayers something to throw out there when neither interception was legitimately Patrick Mahomes' interception. They were on his receivers, a story that we've talked about far too often already this season. Patriots also had, I want to say, 4 or 5 sacks in this game. So, you know, that's something we got to talk about, as well as kind of a negative in this game. Depending on what kind of fan you are, you might throw in the Sky Moore injury. Outside of Rashee Rice, who had 9 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown, there was no other wide receiver who had more than 31 yards. Justin Watson had 1 reception for 31 yards. No other wide receiver had more than 31 yards in this game. No wide receiver had more than 2 receptions. No other wide receiver had more than 2 receptions. Justin Watson had 1. MVS had 1. Richie James had 1. Kadarius Toney had 2. CEH had 4 as a running back for 64 yards and a touchdown. Noah Gray had 2 for 37 yards. Travis Kelce had 5 for 28. Jerick McKinnon had 3 for 19. It was a big tight end running back day for the most part, outside of Rashee Rice. CEH had his biggest impact in the receiving game, which is both a positive and a negative. He had 13 carries for 37 yards, which is a 2.8 average. Jerick McKinnon had 4 carries for 11 yards, which was also a 2.8 average. But in the passing game, CEH had 4 receptions for 64 yards. So outside of Rashee Rice, to me, that was a bright spot. The Justin Watson 1 reception for 31 yards. Noah Gray 2 for 37. Those are things to build off of. Richie James having a reception for 17 yards along with MVS. It's stuff to build off of. But when you look at the sacks, the Chiefs allowed 3 sacks on offense. They only had 2 penalties in this game for 15 yards. So that's a positive. The interceptions, again, they weren't on the quarterback. Unfortunately, once again, we're talking about the receiver room. Kansas City had 61 total plays. They had the time of possession by 1:14. They had the time of possession advantage. Well, it ends up being double that at 2:28, but they had 1:14 more than half of the possession of the game. 19 first downs, 5 of 13 on third down, 0-1 on fourth down, 5.3 yards per game or per play. 43 yards rushing, 283 yards passing. That was the game. Patrick Mahomes was 27 for 37 with 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That was the offense. There are things to be happy and build off of. There were things that it's really hard with the 2 interceptions. Show me for this next game, show me that you're going to continue to give Rashee Rice the snaps that you gave him last time. Show me that you're going to incorporate Richie James and Noah Gray into this offense much more than in the past. They should be taking not only Sky Moore snaps, who is lost for the rest of the season, they should be cutting into MVS's snaps. Even if you want to throw Justin Watson in and say those 3 players, they should be cutting into Sky Moore snaps and MVS's snaps. To me, it's that simple. So that's what I want to see in this next game. I want to see another game as far as the penalties go. 2 penalties, 15 yards. That's the kind of game I want to see in that part. We've cleaned up the penalties, at least in this game. The 2 turnovers off the receiver's hands. We can't have that. But we also scored 27 points. So show me, again, against a good Bill Belichick defense. So show me that we can score 27 again as well. Defensively, what went well? One of the biggest things I was worried about defensively coming into this game with a Bill Belichick offense was our rush defense. The Chiefs elevated Mike Pennell, former Chief, now back, for this game. The Chiefs gave up 52 rushing yards in this game. 10 first downs. The Patriots were 2 out of 12. So we're looking at what, like roughly 17.5%. They converted 17.5% on third down. And 1 for 2 on fourth down. They had 10 less plays than the Chiefs. They gave up 1 more sack. They punted 2 more times. And they had 3 more penalties for 30 more yards in this game. And we also picked them off once. All in all, it's hard to complain about the defense in this game. We gave up 10 points in the second quarter. We gave up none in the first quarter and none in the third quarter. And then we gave up 7 in the fourth quarter there. I'm not going to complain about the defense in this game. I'm not even gonna at this point. I'm not even really going to talk about what went wrong. We had what? We had one big play that I can remember where, if I recall correctly, we had a miscommunication. My show me for this next game, though, Josh Jacobs is a different beast. Aiden O'Connell, in my opinion, already is a much better quarterback than Bailey Zappi or even Mac Jones. The Raiders have much better receiving weapons options than the Patriots. You have Devontae Adams, you have Jacoby Myers, you have Hunter Renfrow. All across the board on the offense, it's a much better offense. Chiefs gave up 17 points to the Patriots. You're going to have to hold the Raiders to say one more touchdown than that, but you got to hold them to that point. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the Raiders scoring 24 or less points. Special teams, what went well? I thought we had, I have to look at the numbers here to be sure. Richie James had 2 punt returns for 33 yards. Tommy Townsend had 4 punts for 196 yards, including 1 down inside the 20, which was actually down at like the 1-inch yard line, if I recall correctly. What didn't go well, what stood out here on the negative side clearly was the missed Harrison Butker field goal, his first miss of the season. A little concerning. We didn't have any kick returns in this game, which I don't think is a negative. It sticks out. But it means that Dave Tobe has actually his strategy, right? He's reining his aggressiveness, and his strategy matches closer the offensive and defensive performances of this season. We have an offense that is struggling to move down the field with consistency to sustain long drives without penalties or turnovers. We have a strong defense. Therefore, the aggressiveness that he had been showing previously this season and earlier seasons does not gel with this team. The best bet on kick returns is going with the new kick return rule is going to be fair catching it most of the time and starting at the 25-yard line. Far too often before we were seeing aggressive returns and we were seeing holds on those returns. So we weren't even getting back to the 25. We were getting to maybe the 20 if we were lucky. We were drawing a flag that was half the distance, making our offense have to try to go 90 yards down the field, sometimes 95 yards, 85, 90, 95, whatever. Taking the fair catch and starting at the 25 and sticking with the 75-yard field with our offense, with our defense, giving our offense even one less first down to get more advantageous. With our defense, playing the field position game, much more advantageous this way. So that's a huge positive. Show me for this game special teams. Show me that Harrison Butker's miss was a fluke. That's basically my one show me for special teams. Show me that Harrison Butker's miss was a fluke. If there was another one, it feels like some of Tommy's punts this season just haven't been it. So show me that we can see Tommy bringing it. Those would be both of mine there. I'm going to skip my staff review because I didn't think I would, if I were to talk about anything, it would probably be about the wide receiver issues. And I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Connor Embry, because even though I do feel like a veteran wide receiver coach would have these receivers at a different place of accountability, and much earlier in the season, at the end of the day, Connor Embry can only control what he can control, and his head coach put him in a piece of crap position to begin with. So anything I say about Connor Embry, I have to back up and ultimately point fingers at Andy Reid for putting him in a very, very disgusting position. And yes, I mean the word disgusting. This was a young group who needed a veteran wide receiver coach. You're taking a guy who was a college running back, and while you're wanting him to move up the ladder and learn coaching from all these different angles and different positions. And listen, don't get me wrong. Hopefully Connor Embry, through these struggles, is going to get a very valuable learning experience. But he's necessarily the scapegoat on this team right now. And that should have been foreseen by Andy Reid. He should have been given help. And so that's where I'm coming from on this. I'm not going to talk about special teams any farther as far as this. I'm going to go to the chat here really quick before I start with my preview of the Raiders. Scott is with us. Hey, Scott. Aaron, if you're just joining in here, Aaron is sleeping right now, as far as I know. And so maybe he'll wake up and join us, but you know how it is, and you know the hours that he's working. So Scott, we're glad that you're with us here, but I'm sorry you're stuck with just me as Aaron's catching up on sleep, and Gooch is putting out fires as always at work. Anybody else who's with us right now, go ahead. Feel free to leave your questions and comments. And as we've shown kind of at the end of these streams, if you don't even want to say anything about football, you want to take us completely off topic, we can talk about food, life, whatever else. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about it all. And so I'll give you guys a moment if there's any questions you want to make. Otherwise, we're going to go on to our preview of the Chiefs and the Raiders. Scott says he'll go across the street and wake Aaron up. Yeah, it's good, Scott. It's not fun to be on here by myself, but Aaron told me earlier that he was just starting to get caught up on his sleep. So there is a good chance that he might be sleeping through this one. And so, hey, sleep's very important. And I know how busy and how hard Aaron and Liz work, as well as Gooch. So if neither join here, I'll be here as long as my voice holds up, which I don't know at this point. Maybe well, may not be. It's kind of feeling a little weak, but we'll go. Our offensive preview of the Chiefs and the Raiders. First question here is, where do I think we might have a disadvantage against their defense? Wanye Morris kind of took a step back as a pass protector this last week. So if Antonio Pierce is smart, and I believe he is smart, I would put Matt Crawford. I would put Max Crosby lined up against him. And they don't even necessarily have to do that. You just the threat of Max Crosby there might be enough to get Juwan Taylor to be early enough or look early enough that the refs start throwing flags again. It's interesting. I was starting to watch the Hard Knocks for the Dolphins earlier today. And one of the things that Mike McDaniel and his coaching crew had found on tape was how Max Crosby, even if he didn't sack the quarterback, he liked to get in and he liked to push the quarterback or, just touch him, whatever. Even if the play, the pass had already been away for a second or two. And, Mike McDaniel had someone on defense on the scout team simulating that. And I thought it was an interesting insight because, psychologically, because he told Tua, Max wants you to feel like he almost sacked you, and he's always there on every play to get in your head, right? The idea being that you speed up the quarterback. Well, we saw Patrick Mahomes get sacked 3 times against the Patriots. Christian Barmore is a great defender. Max Crosby is a high motor, great defender. Where might we have a disadvantage in trying to keep Patrick Mahomes with Max Crosby defending lined up against him? So I think that's going to be the biggest issue is what will Andy do to keep Max Crosby away from Patrick Mahomes? Will we see Jerick McKinnon play more to chip on third downs? Will we see some tight ends squeezing, chipping? What are we going to see to try to slow down Max Crosby in this game? And Andy is actually really good when it comes to really good edge rushers at negating their impact in a game. So, if there's any positive to this possible disadvantage, it would be that. So now on the positive side, where do I think we might have an advantage against their defense? I think that anytime, and I want to be cautious in saying this because, Antonio Pierce was a player under Steve Spagnuolo. I think Antonio Pierce is a very smart defensive mind, and I think he's a great communicator and motivator from what I've heard and what I've seen from him so far. If there is an advantage that we have against their defense, to me, it is Patrick Mahomes, as with every defense and every team. And if we start to figure out how to use Rashee Rice and the other receivers, hopefully Richie James, hopefully using Noah Gray, more 12 personnel, doing more things that way, it should take off the pressure from Travis Kelce and hopefully open things up there. So if that's the case, that's kind of what I see as kind of the advantage that we have. Who has the overall advantage in this matchup? Our defense or our offense or their defense? This is a harder one because I'm not sure what offense we're going to see. If we continue to improve this week, this is an important game. If we continue to improve this week, I think that we have the advantage in this game. And, what I'm saying by that is if our offense plays anywhere close to its potential, it's better. it has the advantage. It's just a matter of, are we going to see them finally get closer to their potential than they have been most of this season? Keys to victory for our offense against their defense. Again, it's going to be it's going to be slowing down Max Crosby. Again, Andy Reid is fully capable of game planning, scheming to take away Max Crosby. From there, and part of that is the offensive tackles have to be disciplined and not draw untimely false starts, untimely penalties for not being on the line of scrimmage, and not getting caught holding. Those are the biggest keys to victory against their defense, and our receivers have to hang on to the ball. Our receivers have to fight, and tight ends have to fight for the ball, not watch the defender want the ball more than them. So, defensive preview here. Where do I think that we might have a disadvantage against their offense? You know, we've kind of already seen this matchup before. When Spags dedicates himself to the defense stopping the pass or the run, we can be really good at that thing. In this case, the Raiders have a great ability to be a balanced offense. We saw Mike Pennell come up, get elevated for the Patriots game. We saw the running game they had. They don't have a running back like Josh Jacobs. You know, the first time we played the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell did a great job for the most part in knowing where to go. It was still my opinion that a lot of that was by design, that they knew that Spags was going to take away Devontae Adams, bracket him throughout the game, and that they had decided that he was going to be the second or third read on most of their plays. That's my opinion. I still believe that's what they did. And I think that it helped Aiden O'Connell know where he was going and get the ball out quickly. Will that be a disadvantage again this time? You know what? I don't really think it's going to. The run game may be a disadvantage in this game, but I'm not going to say that for certain. Because where I think we have a big advantage against this offense is that we have a much better defense than last year. Spags still knows what he's doing. Joe Cullen knows what he's doing. They know what the offense is doing. How many more change-ups do the Raiders have to throw at Steve Spagnuolo and Joe Cullen and the defense? I think that we're going to have an advantage across the board. The Raiders' offensive line cannot stop our defensive line without holding pretty obviously on every play. If I recall correctly, they got away with it the first time we played. Right? Let me look up here. The first time we played, I believe they basically got away with all the holding they wanted to do. Pulling up the stats here, and because I could be wrong. Penalties in this game, yes. The Chiefs had 4 penalties for 40 yards in the first matchup in Las Vegas. The Raiders had 0 penalties. Guys, when is the last time you've heard of a Raiders team drawing 0 penalties? It's not in their DNA. All right, who has the overall advantage in this matchup? Our defense or their offense? And do not get me wrong. The Raiders have the pieces, and they've shown at times to have a great offense with Josh Jacobs as their running back. I think that Aiden O'Connell is going to be a pretty good starting quarterback in the NFL. You have Devontae Adams, you have Jacoby Myers, you have Hunter Renfrow. They have pieces there on offense. Josh McDaniels is gone. So, just as Brandon Staley was holding back the Chargers, Josh McDaniels is gone to not hold back the Raiders' offense any longer. So they have a great offense, but I think in this case, the Chiefs have a 2-time Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator with the most talent we've had on defense in the Patrick Mahomes era. So I think it is fairly clear that the defense for the Chiefs has the advantage in this game, especially a second time around. Key to victory against their offense, I kind of gave that. We can't do the same thing against Aiden O'Connell as we did last time. I think we have to kind of anticipate more of what routes, and you can look up, you can find the charts for this, and if I had Gooch here with me, where he could talk while I did it, I would do it. I don't know if I can do it here while I'm talking to everyone, but you can look up the next gen stats, and you can kind of see like the heat maps of where certain quarterbacks like to throw, where they're getting their completions and yards. And so, as a defensive coordinator, they have all kinds of stats and things that we just don't have as fans. And we have a lot as fans, but they have so much more. Like we have to adapt to that. What Spags did to start out the first meeting, listen, he's aggressive against rookie quarterbacks, right? Well, he's got to adjust, and the Chiefs did adjust last time, so I think we just have to be ready for that, and it will be what it will be. Let's see if I can pull it up in real time. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Yeah, just looking at right off the bat here, looking at this really quickly. And I can pull this up. Pull up Aiden O'Connell's charts here. It's not the easiest thing to see here, but you can make out that how many green dots, which are completions, do you see down the field? Just off the top of the head here, right? He had week 10, he had a couple, right? 20 yards, close to 20 yards downfield, down the middle of the field. Week 12, he had couple 15 yarders and one that was about 30 yards down the right side. But you can kind of get an idea where he likes to pepper the ball, where they like for him to pepper the ball here. And, again, defensive coordinators have so much more stuff valuable to them than we do. And so, listen, Spags has to know what routes they like to run, where he likes to throw the ball, and we have to make sure that we are peppering guys there. We got to take away not just Devontae Adams with brackets, but we got to clog the throwing lanes for the guys who will likely be the first or second read, because Jacoby Meyer, Hunter Renfrow, those guys can beat you if you take away Devontae Adams and you let them run free all over you. So you can't just, be fine with taking away Devontae. Special teams advantage. I still say we have the best kicker in the NFL. Gooch would say that's Kareem Hunt. But Harrison Butker, even with the miss this last game, 15 weeks into the season before you have your first miss, PAT or field goal. So all in all, I think we're seeing a much more sound punt return game. I'd like to still see a little bit more out of Tommy, but I'm going to go that the Chiefs have the special teams advantage on this one. Who do I have in this game? Obviously, I have the Chiefs in this game for basically all the reasons I said here, but at the end of the day, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are still the better combo over Antonio Pierce and Aiden O'Connell. And that is not me being disrespectful to either one of those guys, because I think both in their first year in those positions, not expecting, right? Neither came in to this season as the head coach or the starting quarterback, and they've really earned it, through, even though you don't like to see, well, I didn't like to see Josh McDaniels get fired because I don't want competent coaching in Las Vegas. And, you hate to see injuries and other things happen, but, so I'm not disrespecting either of those guys. I do think that Antonio Pierce is going to be a pretty good head coach in the NFL. And I think that Aiden O'Connell is going to be a pretty good, above average-ish quarterback in the NFL. So not disrespecting them, but they're not Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I think it kind of goes without saying. And there's my wife talking to me in German. Hello, my love. And hello to you. Well, guys, I gave you basically not basically, I did. In the last 2 hours, I gave you my review of week 15, my preview of week 16. Yeah, unless the chat has anything more, that will be it for this show. So, you guys have anything that you want to say, anything you want to talk about, this will be the time to talk. Otherwise, we'll be back here hopefully with a Christmas special, maybe Christmas special of some kind. We'll see if maybe we can get the ladies of BAK to join us again for another special here sometime around Christmas. So if you're listening to this, ladies of BAK, no pressure, but lots of pressure. But yeah, if nobody has any comments, if nobody has anything any weird tangents they want to take us on here, then I'll get ready here. And even though I don't have money, I'll use Gooch's tab and I'll have to pay the bills. So go ahead, guys. If you got anything left you want to say, go ahead and throw it in there. Otherwise, we'll be calling it a show for tonight. All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for watching this show. Make sure you join us back here next Wednesday. Hopefully, both of the guys, Gooch and Aaron, are able to make it back in here as well. And like I said, maybe we'll be able to throw a special out with the ladies of the Back Talk channel as well. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back.
You got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war, we score and win. We're the Super Bowl champs, the king of the hill.